All right. How are we all? Invite friends. I always like when it asks me to invite friends because I'm like, I have no friends. Oh no, I'm on camera. And my water's way over there.
Good thing you have a handy-dandy helper. Okay,
so the reason why our live broadcast this week is going so late is I'm here I'm not at the normal trip cave. I'm at Natalie's trip cave. That's the first one. And then second one, it took us about 20 minutes to figure out how to spell etiquette. So Natalie's here, but she refused to go on camera unless maybe perhaps some people get in there and encourage her to.
No, it's not happening.
I think it should. You know what the weird thing is? The memories came up from 2 years ago, whatever, or a year ago, and it was the trip for the Venice, the Venice train. I posted the pictures wearing the same exact shirt and I believe the same exact hat. So hey, what's going on? It's good to see you in the chat room. So let's talk first about this weekend because I really want to get people involved in what's going on this weekend. We are going to Fort Desoto, and we are going to try to get Natalie hooked up. So if you've been following, if you listen to the episode we did this week, the ghost that is at Fort Desoto, there are a lot of ghosts there, and there's actually some things that I'm going to be able to spring on you live when we're out in the field.
Oh, great.
Yes. But basically the primary thing that we're going to be doing is not a hotel that's $600 a night there, but rather a flirtatious fisherman. And this man has been known to try to pick up the young ladies that go fishing along the beach. So we're going to put a pole in Natalie's hands. There's gonna be a lot of innuendo in this stuff. We're gonna put a pole in Natalie's hands, and we're gonna see if we can get her to bring this guy out. We've been tracking the legend for about 2 weeks now in terms of doing research on the actual legend, and we're not finding too much. So we think this might be another, you said bloody buckets kind of situation.
Yeah, I think so.
And we're finding a lot of that. We should call it the weird Florida syndrome because it seems to be. Weird Florida just needed to have more and more stories, so they kind of invented these ones. But we want everyone to follow us with the hashtag Haunted DeSoto, so you can find out what we're doing all that weekend, because we've got a few other things that we are planning to do.
Like what?
What? Like what?
Yeah.
Well, I can't tell you everything because some of it's supposed to be a surprise. But one of the things we had asked is, would you date a ghost? Now, Natalie, she's a little bit sketchy, so you can hear her outside. Natalie, would you date a ghost? Okay, let's take this back a sec. How far would you go with a ghost?
How far would I go
with a ghost? How far would you go with a ghost? And this is also for anyone out there as well. I think really we only have one lady in the audience right now, but it doesn't matter. It could be a female ghost.
I don't.
How far would you date a ghost? Would you have relations with a ghost?
No.
No?
No, but I've never really thought about the ability to date a ghost. I don't think it's possible.
You don't think it's possible?
I really don't.
You've never been ghosted?
Never been ghosted.
Never been ghosted.
Nope, never been down that road.
All right.
And it makes me think very much like Demi Moore, Patrick Swayze.
And how romantic was that, right? How romantic was that? Should I be looking at you or should I be looking at the camera? That's the question.
The camera.
If you're not going to go.
I would not date a ghost.
You would not date a ghost. Now, a while ago, years ago, and I just recently reposted it, we did the top misplaced ghosts in TV shows.
Okay.
I'm sure you read it because I can tell from your blank expression you didn't even look at it. Thank you for supporting me, by the way. Well, no, I'm going to get to that. Would you feel anything? Because in there, one of the ones we covered was Grey's Anatomy. And do you know the characters in Grey's Anatomy?
I do. I was a huge
What's the creepy blonde chick? What's her name? Not Grey, but the other one.
Oh, she hasn't been on in a long time.
Vogel, Wendell, Catherine Hagel. Catherine Hagel's character.
Something like that.
Was in love with this guy who died, named Denny.
Yes.
And then he comes back and he like does this whole tour of the hospital with Gray because she dies. And it ends with this absolutely beautiful moment where their souls connect. And he says he does that every once in a while. He joins her soul. It's beautiful.
It does. That sounds.
It does, except for then like 2 seasons later, they start having a sexual relationship.
Which is crazy. Like
you
really
remember this then?
Yes, I do.
Yes. Okay. So yes, you would feel stuff. You would be able to, in a non-incubus, succubus kind of way, you would be able to feel stuff. You wouldn't want to have non-attached. Like you would never catch anything. You wouldn't have to worry about.
How do you know?
Maybe. I like how it. What could you possibly catch from a ghost?
I have no idea. I think
would
that's a
okay,
good question.
but would you? But would you? Well, I'm Twitter-tating it on Facebook. Would you? Could you have a relationship with a ghost? Like you hear all the time about psychics and getting, having a special relationship with their spirit guides, and not romantic relationship necessarily, but being able to have a very fulfilling, intense, emotional, and spiritual relationship. Why not one that potentially could be sexual? Or
I think at that point you run into the catfish scenario, where the ghost might not be who he or she says they are.
But who cares?
But who cares?
Right, like who cares that?
Who cares if you get catfished? Because it's ingenuine. It's disingenuine. It's not
right.
real.
But if your mind is there that it is, and there's in catfish and stuff like that, that's usually not physical.
Like that's the same thing as like having an imaginary friend, right? I mean, and who's to say? Are you really having a relationship with a spirit, or are you just imagining it? Like, I don't think there's any way to legitimize that at all.
So, by the way, tell me in the chat room if you can't hear Natalie talk, if you're not hearing what she's saying. Off camera. I was looking at what that said.
Oh.
What does that say?
Rita asked, would you feel anything? She laughed and she said, well, ...
Yeah, what's that other thing, though? The little Facebook thing.
Have friends who should see this video.
Yes,
share it with
all
them
of them.
so they can watch, too.
What is being shared? Okay, so... Yes. Okay. So say this plays itself out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how far would you go in flirting with it? Would you just flirt and like
if there was truly a ghost in front of me that I could see, a spirit,
right?
And he winked, I would wink back.
You would wink
back. Sure, absolutely. I don't think there's any harm in winking.
Okay.
There's a long stretch between winking and having a sexual relationship with a ghost.
Now, I did like do a crazy shift there. Now, let me ask you: did you get any flack back from the pictures we posted?
None.
None of the
nothing.
No. Mm-mm. Do you think a lot of people realized that what we did was Twitter?
What do you mean?
I mean, Tinder.
Tinder?
Do people think people realized that there were Tinder pictures?
I don't think so.
No, we actually made a fake Tinder account. And then put those out there. And so some people at work were like, are you guys on Tinder? Are you guys swinging or something? And I'm like,
for the right. No.
Only if you're a dead fisherman. So
I really don't anticipate this even being a possibility, because I don't think this is a legitimate legend, because it's only been found in one source.
So it's not a legitimate legend, which makes it a non-issue for you. You're not even
non-issue, right? Not worried about it whatsoever.
Okay.
I think it's something definitely fun to go try and see if there is any.
And can you fish?
Yeah, I can fish the best of them.
Okay, so there you go. There's that. So, like I said, we will be doing it. Follow us with hashtag Haunted Desoto.
Yeah.
So that's both on Instagram and on Twitter and on Facebook. All of those for that. So now to like the serious question mark part. Cemeteries.
Now, we've been to our fair share of them.
So when we first started, one of the things that I was debating was whether or not we should do cemeteries.
Mm-hmm.
And you can listen to those early episodes where we kind of debate them. I think the first one is Love and the Lights, where we talk about Oak Ridge Cemetery.
Yes.
And whether or not we should do that. I know it seems like such a long time ago.
It really does.
Christmas. It was Christmas 16.
Yeah.
And was your friend really imaginary? And how old would that friend be now? Just saying.
What?
Are you reading the quotes?
She asked, I had an imaginary friend when I was a child, but was my friend really imaginary?
That's what I'm saying. Is the friend still with you? And if so, how old is she?
Chris is fishing.
I'm just wondering. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, though. Are imaginary friends really imaginary, or are they spirits? Because we all know children have a higher psychic capability than adults. Always.
Yeah, and I think it could be a combination of them. I don't think it's exclusively one or the other, but I do think there are some imaginary friends. And when I was talking with a lot with, I see we're not going on to our main thing, 60. I ain't got a problem with that.
But does she have Tinder?
When I was with Jackie Barrett, working with Jackie Barrett, and she would say she would go into a lot of the insane asylums to work. Insane asylums. I know it's an antiquated word, but mental health hospitals to work with some specific clients. She would see people who would be clearly talking to the dead as she was passing by. She'd be like, oh, that person, whoever thinks is talking to themselves, talking to the dead. She saw people talking to dark spirits and what she would classify as demons or something like that. So, I think that there's a spectrum of that. Like, some of it's just imaginary friends and some of it's other things.
That's pretty crazy. I have a family member who suffers from psychosis who speaks to voices or people that she's talking to herself. We all say she's definitely has, she is.
Oh, wait a minute. It was a male friend? Not to interrupt you, but her friend was a male friend.
I don't think you go that way, do you?
I don't know. For a ghost. I don't know. You can tell. I didn't know it was a ghost. I'm sorry. Continue. So,
anyways,
as we're laughing at the psychosis of your family member.
So it begs the question, though: when and how do you draw that line of are they really, mentally ill, or are they just,
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter if it's an imaginary friend. Does it matter whether or not they're real?
I don't know.
I mean, if the experience is what you're going for, and the companionship, or what does it matter whether it's unless it's something kind of like setting you up for something,
right? It's setting you up, and then you're dependent upon it. If it's a dark kind of imaginary friend, if it's telling you to do bad things, hurt yourself or hurt others, we've seen that in things that we've read about.
But if it's not, if it's just a genuine like companionship kind of situation. Who cares if it's imaginary or not? Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe I should just imagine that I see the fisherman, just for the hell of it.
No. for our sake, we're going to carry that out. Can I get to the cemeteries now?
Get to the cemeteries.
Okay.
Oak Ridge.
So, Oak Ridge Cemetery, and we had a really respectful experience there, I would say, because we spent time, and I see we have someone in the discussion in the chat right now who has spent a lot of time taking naps in cemeteries. In his squad car. We were very respectful at Oak Ridge.
Yes, we were.
So I feel like regardless of what we did there, we were specifically trying to communicate with a spirit of the Air Force pilots that were there. And we were very respectful of that. Mm-hmm. And we were were respectful right to the Hollingsworth family. Shiloh Cemetery. Do you feel that we have very different experiences there?
Yeah.
Your experience there was more negative than mine.
Mm-hmm.
Why was it negative for you, first of all? This is kind of before we get into the discussion that I want to get into.
Yeah, I was very uneasy in Shiloh because of, number one, it is in the back of the main cemetery. So cemeteries. Like there's
right. So if you didn't listen to our Shiloh Cemetery, it's like all these ones that are facing the street, that are right off the street, and you go back in there, and then it was one where the African Americans were
the Page
buried.
Jackson Cemetery. Mm-hmm.
Right, and then behind that was the Shiloh Cemetery, which was falling apart and not very well cared for in most sections of it.
Right, and actually quite big, and they had developed over parts of it. We were told. We later found out. I was very uneasy there from the get-go, and I just wanted to be very, very quick there, and you didn't want to be very quick there.
Yeah, because I didn't get a bad feeling from it at all.
I did. So, and I think again, I have this thing with being in a cemetery at dark, a graveyard at nighttime, because the other ones, Oak Ridge, I was fine. I didn't feel uneasy there, even though we had experiences. I didn't feel uneasy. I felt quite at peace. But Shiloh, the other ones that we've been to at night have all kind of freaked me out.
And I see we now have an Indiana member.
Oh, good.
And so I don't know if, Danielle, I don't know if you've ever been to 100 Step Cemetery in Brazil, Indiana, Danielle, but we went there, and that was very uneasy for both of us, but I think that was more
we psyched
the hype
ourselves up,
before we got there, right?
Well, that and the fact that we passed it the first time. It was raining. There was frogs everywhere. It was in the middle of nowhere.
Invasion of the frogs.
Invasion of the frogs. And then you pulled up, and the steps started immediately. There was no gate.
There was no gate. There was no entrance. There was no build-up. It was like no foreplay.
Bam. Right. Yeah. So cemeteries are not my favorite.
So here's the main connection between those three cemeteries. And other than that, there's another cemetery we're not allowed to talk about that we were at. And I think maybe a little bit of that for this one too. For a little bit of this for that one too. All the ones we've gone to specifically because there was a legend behind it, right? Mm-hmm. Like we went there not as investigators, not as cemetery people just looking because we heard there was a scary ghost there, but all of them had a legend that seemed interesting. Right? Mm-hmm. We had the legends of the battles and the Talking Mary. Those were maybe a little bit less legendy and more haunty. But we had...
the Talking Mary, I would say, is an absolute legend.
Right. We could debate that. Like, that seemed whether it's a haunting or a legend. But, the no-faced ghost in Shiloh, and, of course, all the stuff connected to 100 Step Cemetery. They were legends. And so really we were looking at the legends, and the legends happened to be located in the cemetery.
Don't forget our symbolism trip with the kids, tripping on kids.
All right, that was beautiful. That was very respectful. That wasn't
absolutely. Yeah.
That wasn't necessarily.
But we definitely had activity there too.
Yes, we did.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we did. And actually, I've read up some more on that. Have to come across my Waya.
Oh, cool.
A little bit, but so now here's the. Rita, you better be listening to our episodes then, because that's exactly what we're doing is all the legends behind these stories.
Rita asked, wait, quick sidebar.
Yeah.
Rita asked, are those scary shadow people real or is that imaginary? So you'll have to look at the video posted prior to this one, right?
Right.
Or was it the one prior to that?
We talked about the shadow people.
We talked about shadow people. We got a really cool discussion.
But we've had, now in 3 locations? Mm-hmm. In 3 locations, we've experienced shadow people. And... the shadow people, none of them were connected to the stories except for the one that we're not allowed to talk about. Mm-hmm. None of them had shadow people as part of their legends. And so it seems to, right, and it seems, and once again, the shadow people do fit in with cemeteries in general because they seem to be, if there's activity in a cemetery, there's a shadow person involved. Mm-hmm. And that's actually how I first made the connections with the Puckwudgies and the shadow people. So, yeah, I mean, I think shadow people are real. What they are, we still haven't gotten Paul's video yet.
Right, yeah.
So we're hoping for that. But I do think that they're real.
Yeah,
Rita, you totally have to, I wish we could bring you in. But we would totally love to hear about your being chased by shadow people's story.
Absolutely. Rita, if you feel comfortable, either, email us your story, because we've had a lot of those kind of stories come to us.
Right. And we've experienced, I have to keep shifting because this is not the most comfortable chair. Sorry if it makes it like that, for watching. But yeah, I would love to hear your stories. And you can go back and listen to our stories from the mini lights. Mm-hmm. And the mini lights and the one we're not supposed to talk about. Actually, that's edited out, but technically the episode's still out.
Yeah.
The Tripping on Pants the first episode, Tripping on Pants. Not putting your pants back on. And then what other one do we have it? And Shiloh we talked about, right? The mini lights.
Mini lights, Shiloh, and that one. Yeah. The other one.
So my question to you is, and to you I mean also the people out there, and I'll tell you the spark behind this. At what point do we become disrespectful in cemeteries? And at what point should we not be allowing ghost stories to become the stories of cemeteries?
What does that mean? What point should we not allow ghost stories to become
Well, at what point is this cemetery the resting place for the 100 people are there, as opposed to the location where this one ghost is. So the value or the interest or of that one ghost that might be there versus the other people that are there that are just to be laid to rest. And I think that oftentimes when you hear about a cemetery, it is a legend because there's a general consensus, that why would you stay in a cemetery unless there was a reason to?
We've had a really good discussion with Lori Champion about this.
Yes.
Too. About how people often used cemeteries as a place to gather.
As a meeting place, a gathering place.
Right. And so
that's all taken out of the trip of putting your pants back on, but it's in the original one.
It is still in there. Okay. Right. And Rita says cemeteries are beautiful and peaceful, and they absolutely are. During the daytime, I absolutely agree with you.
So let me tell you the spark of this.
Okay.
So spark of this is while I was researching some of these and I was falling down these rabbit holes, there was one cemetery that falls in our Central Florida Ocala Forest that's a story that we're working on that's haunted.
Okay.
And they have ghost tours through the cemetery.
See, I don't think that's right.
So that's kind of was the part. Like, should you be allowed to have? And I'm gonna wait. It's gonna be worse. Should you be allowed to have ghost tours through a cemetery?
No.
Now the cemetery would normally be closed. They either have permission from the city or whatever, but they are.
No.
They are taking a ghost tour, discussing the ghosts that appear at the cemetery. Oh, I'm not done yet.
I could see outside the gates, absolutely, sure, and
like hitting upon it and stuff like that. And now here's so there's that, and they give people equipment. These ghost tours actually give people K2 meters and digital thermometers to take on this ghost tour through this cemetery.
That's horrible, and I think a lot of people are very insensitive to others' religious beliefs. Quite often, people believe that the spirits, the souls of their dearly departed are still there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
do you think that?
Do I think that? No, that's not my personal belief. However, that is the main centerpiece of it. Oh!
Rita,
okay?
Rita, yes, I just choked. Rita, where are you at, by the way? Because the first legend trip I ever went on, I'm trying to just overcome that. While you're there, can you fill up the water too? Yeah. There you go. Try here. It's empty. Because the first ones I went to, first cemeteries that I really went to with that intention. Now I went to cemeteries at night all the time when I was a kid, teenager. We thought it was beautiful. We'd hang out there. We'd smoke cigarettes, listen to music, all that kind of good stuff. The first legend trips I went to were in Rehoboth, where that was the granddaddy of revolutionary cemeteries and all these different cemeteries. So I feel that. Saxonville. I would love to see some pictures from your cemetery, by the way. But that seemed right? And so we were borderline disrespectful back in the day to even just be led to legend tripping and investigating in one.
Yeah.
And those kind of the two things we can have up for debate. But this ghost tour runs through the cemetery and gives equipment.
Yeah, I don't think that's right. I think that's absolutely. We don't do that though. We don't.
But
right.
But I mean, is that too far?
Yes.
We're trying to create some limits of what we should and should not do in a cemetery.
That's too far because it's disruptive. It's disruptive of the natural peacefulness that cemetery is supposed to create for the people that are resting there. It disrupts it.
Do you think there are spirits in cemeteries?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We've experienced that.
I mean, because I generally tend to think the cemeteries are more for the living than the dead.
I agree with you. However, we have seen proof in the pudding that there are spirits there. Who they are, where they come from, are they actually people that are buried there? Who knows?
Thank you for the water, by the way.
You're welcome.
I wish you had gotten me pudding, too.
I don't have pudding. I'm sorry. I would hate to see you spit out pudding at me because that would be horrible. I think that quite often the spirits that we found probably come with the people visiting the cemeteries.
I mean, that's what I feel, too. And I think even the legends aren't necessarily there because there are cemeteries, except for the one in Wilton where it's very directly related. He's looking for his lost daughter.
Yeah, and I think
that's one
we've come through a lot of those, like that lady in blue that you've told me about.
Same location.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And Lady in Whites that we've talked about, people searching for lost love, da 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 da. So I mean, we've come across a lot of those. So I can see that being tied to the cemetery, but that's a legend.
All right, so now legend tripping.
Uh-huh.
By the way, Framingham, I've been to some of the cemeteries in Framingham. Pukwudgie experiences there, as well as cult activity. That's where kind of like my first interest in Pukwudgies came from, was from Framingham. So I'm not sure where in Framingham we were in relationship to
I'm pretty
Honor
sure
Point.
my ex-husband has family that lives there, actually.
In Framingham?
Yeah.
That's random.
Right?
Very random.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've talked about this, actually. Yeah, you knew about this.
I must have blocked it out.
Okay. Anyways,
Okay.
Continue.
Okay. Do we go too far?
No.
Okay, so going in there with equipment, going into a cemetery. Now, I know this touches a lot of people's nerves because if you are, chances are if you are talking with us tonight, I got to pull this out a little bit because my elbow's up. Meaning we got to show a little bit more of Natalie's house.
Rita said we have Pukwudgies here.
That's what I'm saying.
Do you have an experience with Pukwudgies, Rita? How do you know about them? Just through Chris?
No, I mean, everyone there knows about Pukwudgies now.
Really?
Yes.
That's hilarious.
Yes. If you are watching me right now and listening to me right now, chances are you are one of my ghost friends. My mom doesn't watch this, right? You're an investigator. You have a paranormal interest. That's how we're connected.
Gotcha.
So it touches a nerve because we are in cemeteries all the time.
But we don't have high-tech equipment. The most that we bring is a recorder that we keep in our hand. And
right, but we're there for the
phones.
same purpose. We're there to touch the paranormal. We're there to disturb the rest of the people
But we're
who are
not
there.
boisterous. We're not loud. We're very quiet. We're respectful.
But where's that line then? And I'm looking to want to hear from you guys as
Absolutely.
well. If you're watching it live or just if you catch it afterwards, chances are you've been in a cemetery, whether you've been legend tripping as a teen, whether you've done it as an investigation, whether you've done it later as maybe a formal investigation or an adult legend trip. You've been in a cemetery. Where's that line between being disrespectful and being respectful?
Okay,
and
here's
where does their rights as the dead clash with your rights as an investigator or as a tripper?
Do either really have rights to talk about?
Do they? I mean,
you have civil liberties. Does that extend to when you're dead?
I know, but but rights of decency.
Rights of decency. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? You're trampling on where someone's final resting place is. You are going in there. You are going into where someone has set aside, and maybe it's even hallowed ground, somewhere sacred, and you're playing around.
Why are you playing around?
Well, because it's you're not there to necessarily to cherish the life that they lived.
Why not?
You're not. Will you let me finish?
No.
Let me finish, girl. You're not there to. You're not there to pay your respects to them necessarily. I'm saying once again, there's a spectrum. However, because we're also seeing Rita saying that she's always respectful. But even in that moment, that is set aside for them. It's set aside for their families. It's set aside for maybe being extended to society to pay their respects. By going in there looking for a ghost, are you clashing with those objectives?
So here's my answer.
Okay.
And it's going to be based upon our
I'm going to drink
activity.
and not spit it.
Please try not to. So here it's based upon what we have done, our experiences. The way that we have approached different cemeteries that we have gone into looking legends within. We typically go around to every accessible gravesite, do we not? And we kind of say the person's name out loud, and we look at it okay, well, this person was, a religious person, or this person was not, or this person was a Mason, da da da.
Right, we try to explore their history by what's on there.
And we say their name out loud. And I feel like me as a person, if I die, I want the world to remember me. Isn't that kind of everybody's goal, is to be remembered, right? Everybody always wants to be remembered. So it's
remembered, but remembered at my grave, I'm not quite sure. I'm much more of a Shakespearean, as long as eyes exist and men can read and eyes can see, so long as this and this gives life to thee.
But That's where you've chosen your final resting place to be. That's what you've chosen. That's where the last.
But I don't think when you do that, I don't think that when you do that, you're like, and I hope that some wacky teens with dowsing rods come into where I've chosen to lay my body to rest and start asking me if I know, how did you die?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or like, talk to us, and snapping pictures trying to get something.
Do you
like
feel
a
like
shadow
we've ever done that as legends?
Forget about us. What you're trying to do is you're trying to like push off the question as if I'm attacking you or I'm attacking us.
I'm just saying.
I'm saying in general. Well, I think there's a level to it. Okay, we can all agree that going into like having a ghost tour where people pay you money to go through a cemetery is bad, right?
Yes.
So
we agree.
That's on one extreme, right? Okay.
So where's the line is your question. I understand.
Where's the line? Like, yes, we can be respectful. For the most part, I would always say there's been a level of respect every single time I've gone into a cemetery like that. As a matter of fact, there's a reason why I've never tripped or investigated Mount Auburn Cemetery, which is supposed to be extremely active. It's because it's like, well, that's where my family is. And I feel that it's disrespectful because my family's in there to disturb them and turn them into the.
But it's okay to disturb other people.
That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking.
That's hypocritical. I don't think that you cannot take that standpoint. If you're going to disturb one ghost, you got to disturb
because,
all.
all right, so I'll tell you something that annoys me is like when you get like these pictures on gravestones, and it's like, that's not your uncle.
Right.
Like, why are you taking a picture of the gravestone? And now we've done it. We've taken pictures of gravestone. I don't feel like we've ever really modeled.
We've never posted at a gravestone, no.
Like, the closest that would be me taking pictures of you talking to Mary.
But
then once again, we were trying to get pictures of Mary.
And was I sitting there, like, having a conversation like this? No, it was very quiet, and it was in hushed tones.
Right.
And, and I think that's your line. But you're always going to have people that cross the line, no matter what. So I think as long as in the paranormal field and industry, there is that unspoken rule of this is the etiquette.
Well, I don't think there's an unspoken rule. I think that there might be peer pressure, but I don't think that there's
not a general consensus of this is how to behave.
I don't think there is. There might be, but I don't think it's followed by more than 80% of the people. By the way, those are bugs that I've let in. Those are not ghosts or anything like that.
Oh, you let
or shadow people.
My house. Oh, they fought the moths.
They come with the moths. Come with me. They go wherever I go.
Rita says that she's used dowsing rods and found wells of water that no one else could. That's pretty cool.
Nor was I insulting dowsing rods.
No,
I was merely using that as an example because it was one of the things that they gave in this thing. Like,
that's just,
I have no problem making money off a haunted location.
Okay.
Like, I have no problem with being like, all right, so here's a famously haunted hotel, and we advertise that it's haunted, and you can stay there, and we talk about it and stuff like that.
Because it only interrupts the ghosts that have chosen to be there?
Or the ghosts that are there, or what I'm saying is in general, like, if you're making money off the paranormal, it sells.
Of course.
I don't necessarily have a problem with it.
Okay.
Like, two things sell, sex and ghosts, and I love both of them. There you go. Right? I'm going to say that straight out. And so I feel that even those, like, ones that, like...
So where's your line?
We were in
when is it...
But I don't, for some reason, for me, a cemetery...
Sexy paranormal is still...
Sexy paranormal. That's my new group. But I feel something about a cemetery. It's a place that's like put aside to rest in peace, not be gawked at in peace, and in not peace. And so I get very uneasy when we're in cemeteries, not because it's haunted, but because it's.
I think we should take a poll for the dead from the dead people. I think
we should take a poll from the live people as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
The question is, should you have sex with a ghost in a cemetery? That's
wait,
how
did you jump to that? Sex with a ghost in a cemetery?
She jumped to it. I didn't jump to it.
Who jumped to it? Oh, my word.
You did, kind of.
No.
I love this, by the way. Natalie's selling this for her Etsy for...
No, that is for my personal collection.
Oh, okay, all right. Trying to see if we can get a little bit of her Etsy with it, too. Talk to me. What's the poll?
What's the pole?
What's the pole?
The pole is what's the line? What's the line within a place of rest or worship?
Well, you know what people are going to say. People are going to have the same attitude as Rita, which is if it's with respect. But have we defined what respect is?
No.
Like, because I'm saying that there's a part of me that respect is don't be there. Like, don't be there unless you are there to visit or to show like specific, like for the life and the death and not the ghost of somebody.
I see.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I understand.
There's a part of me
saying.
that's like that.
I get
There's
it.
a part of me that's conflicted about that.
I don't know what the right answer is there because on one hand, you're absolutely right. And we should be respectful of people's wishes and beliefs and da-da-da. But also, we miss out on a ton of really cool stuff, really cool legends that have,
Is our need to experience that legend, not know of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because us going there might have added something to the lore of it, right? Whether it's because someone listens to our podcast and then tells someone else about it, or hopefully we read a book and it becomes something that like, oh my word, have you heard about this ghost? Have you heard about this legend? And they tell it, and then maybe we've added a spoke to that wheel.
Okay.
But if not, the legend exists whether we go into that cemetery or not.
Right.
So we can understand the value of the legend, and we can even go in there and say, like, well, now we've really been there, but we go in there looking to communicate. We go in there.
Yeah,
we go in there with
anywhere,
cameras
though? Really
and
truly.
and recording equipment to try to get something. And granted, we're not evidence obsessed, but we want evidence, right? Otherwise, we would just go in there naked. Meaning without equipment.
Like at the fisherman.
Meeting out. Yes.
But can't that be said for any location? For anything? Can't that be said for my home here, where we've experienced?
Sure, but I think that there's a different level of respect for whatever. I'm respecting your house, right? As a matter of fact, I'm the one who says like, don't be messing with that stuff.
You're respecting my house, but not really, because if you're trying to capture that thing on film or
specifically, we were trying to get rid of that. What's in your house?
Yeah.
Right? This is actually a place that is set aside to let people rest, to give them their final resting spot. But we're going in there to try to shake that to get information, to get evidence, or even just to like touch the legend.
I guess the question has to first be answered: is it shakeable? Is the cemetery shakeable? Can you disturb others?
All right, so that's another good question to put out there to the audience. Like, can you shake ghosts? Can you disturb them just by your mere presence? And I would say the answer to that question is if there are ghosts there, or if there are spirits there to be shaken or shooken.
Shook.
To be shucked.
Nope, wrong.
Then yeah, you can't, right? You can be offensive. Like, we've seen evidence and heard evidence of ghosts being offended by people's presence there.
Absolutely.
Or Lydia did not want me in there. She wanted me out.
Well, she wanted you at first.
Well, I think she was just kind of touching my butt to get me moving. Like, move along, get along now, doggy.
Yes. So again, but that wasn't a cemetery. That wasn't her final resting
place. But in terms of whether or not we can shake a ghost, I think that's proven that you can. So,
but are those the ghosts that you shake that are voluntarily being able to be shook? Or are the ghosts that are gone, that are resting, or don't want to talk to anybody? They don't.
Let's say they're not. Let's say they're not even ghosts. Let's just say like it's the intent of the place itself. It's what the place is meant to be. It's the honor and respect you should have for the dead, regardless of whether they're ghosts and they're like, you know what, that offends me. Put that away. Right? What if it's just you're disrupting the intent, the purpose of that area, right? Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it does work on those two levels. And yes, I would love to see people go in there and decorate graves. Got no problem with that. I would even go so far as to say that some of the stuff we did in Oak Ridge with laying the coins down and saying the poem and stuff like that while we were trying to elicit a response, was still respectful in that we were trying to create an environment that we thought was good for them and that they would enjoy. And we were remembering.
And we were learning. So, I mean,
But going into another type of cemetery, right? Going into Page Jackson, Shiloh, I don't feel like we were remembering anything.
No, we just
You know what I'm saying? We were looking for a ghost of a girl who had her face eaten off by fish. And I'm not sure how respectful that is.
Yeah, she was already murdered by that point, probably. So, really, we were looking for the victim of a murder who had her face.
Okay, I think that's totally like splitting hairs.
I know.
But long hairs on a face,
yes,
on a skeleton.
Yes.
If you will.
So I think that if you're not going to have the nerve, if you will, in order to kind of ruffle a few feathers, then you can't be in the paranormal industry. Because like I said, you're always going to offend somebody with your actions. And it doesn't matter what the place is.
Okay, wait, can I take it one step back? Because I want to address Anthony's question or Anthony's statement. He said, I was always told that if you look for ghosts in the cemetery, they will follow you home.
Yikes.
Now, here's my question about that. Because actually, around where you used to live, I've got stories from that area, by the way, the cemetery that used to be near you. Not to mention the fact you grew up like 2 feet from a funeral home. What if you're just in the cemetery, Anthony? Right? And I know Anthony spends a lot of time in cemeteries.
Okay.
What if you're just in the cemetery? Were you still told that it could follow you home, or did you have to do something offensive or disruptive, maybe a better word, to get them to come home? So I'm just throwing that out there to Anthony to get his.
While we're waiting for Anthony's answer, when I was little, I was told that you had to hold your breath. Right. When passing a cemetery, or else they'd steal your soul or something.
They'd steal your soul, right.
Isn't that crazy?
You know,
where did that come from?
You know what my mom used to say every time we passed a cemetery?
What?
Every single cemetery we passed, she would say, I wonder how many people are dead in there. And we'd say, I don't know, Mom. And she'd go, hopefully all of them. Every single cemetery. Talk about a dad joke. That's a mom joke.
That's a mom joke, yeah.
Rita, I so want to hear so much more. Like, you have to email me more about what you're saying here, because we're just getting fragments of what you're saying, and we don't want to go too much off the topic, but we love what you're saying. So you have to email us at spooky Balzano. No, spookytripping@gmail.com.
So anyways, I think, like I said, the line of thought that I was going with, if you're not willing to ruffle a few feathers with your behavior, I guess, or your actions, you don't belong in this industry. However, you can do so.
Oh, we so disagree with this. This has been like a. This has been a private. You can't see, but off camera, she's shaking her finger at me too. This has been a point of contention, I think, since day one with us. But go ahead.
Probably. However, I think that the way that you've approached things, the way that you've taught me to approach things, because you've brought me into this field, I think, kind of.
You're welcome, Padawan.
Never mind.
Okay.
But okay, so I think you've taught me to be respectful no matter where we go, and that kind of just comes natural anyways.
Right.
And I think,
right, because I think you're like that anyway. You're very much in touch with,
and I think,
not the spirit world, but people and the spirit of people.
And the spirit world.
And the spirit world. So.
But I think that the best way to attack the behavior of people that are not respectful and are offensive is to do what we do and get that message out there of,
to shame them, to cemetery shame them.
To cemetery shame them, yeah, absolutely. Like,
okay, so hashtag cemetery shame. So if you are seeing someone do something and they post something, you got to put it out there with the hashtag cemetery shame.
Cemetery shame. You know what's really cool? It's kind of a sidebar here again, but
what?
I don't know if you follow
it's better
it
than
all.
Side chick.
It is.
But continue.
Much. Depending upon who you are. They do gravestone restoration. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen that done?
I mean, I know that there are people out there doing it. I mean, have I ever physically seen them restore a gravestone?
No, like I've seen pictures and things like that. And they do incredible work, and it's amazing how they can bring them back to life
Right.
But
well, I mean,
is that disruptive? Who's to say that's not disruptive?
I don't know. I mean, the exact right, because you have the opposite of that is like for example at Met State in Massachusetts, which is primarily in Waltham, you have Taunton, you have Danvers. All those places at one time or another were taking the unmarked graves and trying to research who it might be to give them a proper grave. Right? So back in the day, if you died in one of those asylums or mental institutions, mental health, whatever you want to call them, oftentimes you were just given a number and a letter.
Wow.
And the letter was your religion because people had pretty much abandoned you to these facilities.
Yeah. And
rather than getting a proper headstone, you were given maybe Anthony says he's not once a plaque, a little not even a plaque, just like I was like the things I made with Ella, where you fill cement in. It's just, and they would break anyway, and you were given the letter was your religion, so C for Catholic, P for Protestant, J for Jewish, and then a number. And so they were trying to find the records, a lot of which were destroyed one way or another, to give those people actual names.
God, I didn't know. I had no idea. I
So
didn't have experience
that's
with
the
it.
opposite. I mean, that's the opposite of what we're talking about, which is trying to take those makeshift cemeteries almost and try to respect
but again,
the dead.
That's some place where they're resting for eternity. How is doing anything involved there not disrespectful?
Well, because I think that they're trying to give those people a proper burial.
We're bringing those people back into the world.
You keep saying we, as if you're trying to justify your own actions.
No. I'm saying we people in the paranormal industry.
Okay,
a collective we, if you will.
Okay.
So
maybe community might be a better word than industry. When I think industry, I think porn.
Wow.
The industry. I think the industry, I think the porn industry. Like industry to me has a connotation of porn. I'm sorry, it does. And we're not in porn.
I think you only ever have paranormal or porn on the brain.
Yes, those are the two P's. Two P's. Pie, paranormal, and porn. I'm not sure. I know. I'm addressing the spirits coming back thing that both Anthony has talked about, Rita's talked about it now. And I think, can you be offensive and or just engaging and they come back with you? I don't know if I feel that in cemeteries as much as I feel it about other locations. I feel like if you're in a cemetery, if you're a ghost in a cemetery, unless you're making yourself known to the person and you're more attached to the person than you are to the place, like you were saying at the beginning, I think that if you're in a cemetery, you're kind of in a cemetery for a reason.
Unless you're stuck there.
That's what I'm saying. Like you're in there for a reason. There's a reason why you're in the cemetery. If you're a ghost and you're in the cemetery.
But can your actions free that spirit? I wonder.
I don't think that screwing around in there does it.
What defines screwing around?
Well, I mean, that's what we're trying to create, those lines of what is respectful, where does that line
What, in your opinion, is screwing around in a cemetery?
I shift on it. Okay, so...
Right this moment, what is your opinion?
So, for example, there were promotional pictures taken by a ghost group, and they were overly sexualized.
Okay.
What did you say?
I was just saying, stop looking over there, look over here.
Oh, at the game? Sorry, I'm looking at the game highlights as we're doing this. I can multitask. They were No, that I was thinking though. I was trying to think of the best way to say it because I don't want to be offensive because there are people who are my friends who are their friends. But they were sexy pictures taken in the cemetery.
They were the original sexy paranormal, if you will.
If you will. Okay? And they were like on one of the pictures you can clearly see like the place where my grandfather is buried. Highly offensive to me. And I was like, is it offensive just because it's my grandfather? I'm like, no, I think it would be like, I'm all about like sexy chicks and stuff like that. But I felt like using that as that combination of the cemetery and the sexiness to me, disrespectful.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that I feel like that, like if you're using the cemetery for something.
If you're using,
like that.
Okay, so is it only towards sexualization? Or if you're using it to investigate, if you're using it to make money, if you're using it to prove the existence
I don't know.
experience.
That's the debate that goes on in my head.
If you're using it to show
that's
the
why I want other
symbolism
people.
of the Masons in the early 19th century, if you're using it to teach somebody, if
okay, so like when we were when we were there with the kids, right? In Minnesota Cemetery, right?
Minnesota,
or it was
yeah.
in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember.
It was at Bradenton, actually. Bradenton Memorial
Right, but I think that
Gardens.
actual area is known as Minnesota.
I think so.
Okay.
Potentially.
You may be right, but I'm not willing to concede it. I feel like that was the ultimate of respect because we were teaching them what a cemetery was. We were teaching them how these symbols were things that people left behind.
Yeah, but we were still disrupting them. We weren't there remembering anybody. We were using it for education.
I think, well, right. I don't necessarily think that that's wrong.
But where's the line of educating somebody? We're educating people on a legend.
I don't think anybody learns anything from me, ever. If my VAM scores have anything to say about it.
Oh, that's horrible.
It is.
Listen, honestly, though, don't make a joke.
Okay,
listen.
I'm deflecting.
I understand.
Because all of a sudden you got so I was like,
Well, because you have to be able to see this all the way around.
Okay.
360 view here, right? If you're saying, okay, we were super respectful at that place because we were teaching kids about the symbols, but yet we were all over. We walked the entire cemetery in and out of memorials, right? Yes, we were taking pictures. We were going over those pictures with the kids, talking. We weren't very respectful and quiet and sitting there in peace and saying people's names. And we weren't praying for them. We weren't remembering them.
We were.
What?
We were, in our own way, praying for them.
Okay, whatever,
Okay.
if you think so. But we were using that as education for children.
Right.
We went to Oak Ridge, and we were educating people about the pilots, the World War II pilots.
I think the educating that we've done post going there is worth anything that we did there.
But
so I see where you're coming from. I see that as the research that we did about that. We have through our talks and things like that, in this episode itself, we've really educated people on Florida's role in the British Royal Air Force.
Mm-hmm. And the Hollingsworth family that we
less about that, but like more about. But I'm saying, like, I think we've educated people on that. I think there are a lot of people that didn't know about that.
My point is, can't anybody who is utilizing a cemetery or a graveyard for their own purposes spin it to be, well, but I was using it to educate. Well, right. But I was using it for this. So I think
I do.
It's either yes or a no.
I don't think it's a yes or no. I think there are degrees. And I don't know where the degrees are. And that's where the debate is going on in my head.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that we can clearly say, not clearly, but I think we can almost common sense say certain levels are. Like Ghost Tour with equipment. No. But here's what I would like to know. I don't think he's in here tonight, but I think one of my friends, and actually I'm going to put his name here.
Okay.
So maybe he can even see that we're talking about
I
him.
think if you put it'll tag it. Yep.
Okay,
mm-hmm.
But one of the friends I have, who's right there, his name's Jeremy, and he runs tours in Boston, right? And oftentimes he dresses up. I'm pretty sure, Jeremy, tell me if you're wrong, if you get this and I'm getting this wrong, but he runs tours. You can ask Anthony's question in a minute.
No, I don't think you got him, but I might be able to invite him. Oh,
no, it's in.
Okay.
You can invite him if you want. Do you want me to invite him?
Yeah, invite him.
Okay, I'm going to invite.
Hold, please.
Jeremy here. And of course, I'm spelling Jeremy like I say Jeremy. Okay, I just invited. That was weird. Okay. He runs tours through Boston.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure one of the places that he does is the cemetery that's right out in front of Suffolk University, which has Ben Franklin in it. It has some other people as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's cool.
On those tours, they're educating. Now, granted, they're kind of doing a ghost tour, right? Like they're doing a history tour of the cemetery.
Mm-hmm. Is
that a violation? And is that violation the same kind of violation as doing a ghost tour through one? Like, what's the line there? Is the line there that, and I know we're not giving any answers, and I hope people aren't frustrated by the fact that we're not giving any answers, but I think these are things to think of, because if we set these places aside, where is the actual honor that we're supposed to have for them, right? So by going through and educating people about, oh, here's this person and here's a story associated with them, well, what's the difference between that and here's a ghost that's associated with this place and here's that story? So in other words, without equipment, but just doing it. Like you were saying, you were saying at the very beginning, if they go by the cemetery and say, in this cemetery, I think that's 100% respectful, right? Mm-hmm. But actually then going into the cemetery and doing that line, you know, and I don't think there is an answer. I want to know what other people's thought. I mean, do we have, even within the industry, do we have a consensus of where that line is, right? Because, I mean, think about this for a second. And maybe it's a little bit different with a statue, but we've gone into a cemetery and we've literally put a tape recorder on a headstone. Now, we did it on the statue.
What headstone?
We've done it before, though. When we've been there, we put the tape recorder on the headstone. Yeah.
Okay.
You're putting a tape recorder on a person's headstone.
Mm-hmm.
We've done it at least once, I can think of.
Okay.
It was in that cemetery.
I don't remember that, but okay. I think on the
line?
Statue. But
not line.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough call. It really is.
Yeah.
Because you are there, in our personal experience, we're there being respectful, but for our own personal gain, to educate.
But also to invigorate and to experience and to get off on it, you know?
So I guess when does it become inappropriate and when does it become off limits? I mean, should they be off limits? Or are they just
I mean, they kind of are, right?
They're not really. They're
at night they are.
Yeah, at night they are. Yeah.
And I hear what you're saying about paying respect, but how do we pay respect and disturb at the same time? So I'm asking you that, Rita. Like,
do you
just roll that in your head. I don't think it's something
beforehand?
that you can just. I mean, I mean, I think we do. Like you were saying, like we say people's names. We always say thank you. We always say we hope you find rest and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But is that enough?
Right. Is it enough?
Is it enough?
Do we ask permission beforehand?
Do we have like Robert's rules going into cemeteries?
Right, exactly. And then maybe even like a scale for people. Like, you know how we have like the threat level? Do the offense level?
The offense level?
Right.
Yeah.
And
so
you are on level red
all right,
right
so
now.
Here's what I want you guys to do. Comment in the comments in here, right? Or if you're getting this because we were posting it up on YouTube and stuff too, just you can put it in the comments on YouTube or whatever. An action and a threat level. Right?
Right.
So the threat level would be red is the toughest, right? So red would be clearly offensive.
Clearly, like you are taking sexualized pictures on a headstone. That's bad. That's red. You're on red.
It wasn't on a headstone. You could just see it in the background.
Okay.
In their defense. What's the next threat level?
I would be like orange.
Orange? Does it go orange, yellow, red? Or it doesn't go yellow? Orange? You getting there?
Borderline.
You're offensive, but you're offensive. But I'm like maybe yellow. Yeah, you're starting to approach it.
Right.
And then green would be not offensive.
Green would be like, yeah, you're good.
Yeah. So give an action that you have done in a cemetery, and be honest with yourself. Right? Be honest with yourself. Okay, I have had sex in a cemetery.
I have not.
Red.
I would give you red for that. Yeah.
I have pooped in a cemetery.
Oh, red.
I can clearly say I was young.
I'm learning all kinds of things about you.
And they were not at the same time, by the way.
That was my next question.
But it was a very extreme circumstance, and I had
with a ghost. Was the sexual experience with a ghost in the cemetery?
No.
Okay. That would still be red, by the way.
Right.
Paranormal sex is still red.
Okay. Yeah, imagine you never have to be like, oh, I can't. I've got my period because they don't have periods in like as ghosts. You can imagine. Moving on. I've done. You know what I'm saying? I've never vandalized. Right. Although you could consider the poop vandal, and it wasn't in the main part. It was kind of off to the side and stuff like that. But I really had to go to the bathroom. We didn't have a car. I had to go. I had to go.
Did you come back the next day and clean it up?
No.
Okay, no, still on a red.
I'd rather not. I'd rather drop that because it's a really embarrassing moment in my life. Okay. I've done tours through a cemetery. I've conducted a tour through a cemetery, explaining the ghosts and stuff like that. Yellow, maybe, right? I've legend tripped in one, depending on the level. From green, but what might be considered green to. I want other people to tell me. Give me a specific, those are definitely red. Give me specific things that you've done in a cemetery. Mm-hmm. And let's do this. What could be beyond green? Blue?
Beyond green?
Yeah, like intentionally going out of your way to be respectful could be blue. Okay. So green is being right, going above and beyond we'll call blue.
Okay.
So give us what you have done in a cemetery. And we'll post when we repost this, we'll put the scale on there.
Okay.
Give us the activity you've done and where you would put it on the scale.
Yeah, what you think your activity is rated at. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, what would you rate restoring headstones to?
That would be like a blue.
That would be a blue,
right?
Absolutely.
That would be a deep, deep blue.
100%. Explaining symbolism to children.
I'd have to say green. I feel greenish.
I feel green.
I feel green doing rubs, doing headstone rubbings.
I don't know what
That's where you go and you put like a special paper and charcoal, and you reproduce the markings on them.
Neat.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very big activity in the Northeast.
Okay.
I consider that a green.
I mean, recently over the summer, I took the girls to a cemetery in northern Michigan, and to find kind of our ancestors, and we went around and looked at all of the people that are in our family, and we cleared away things that hadn't been.
It's a blue.
I mean, that's a blue, right? But I mean, we were definitely walking on where they were buried, but we were doing it in order to help the space.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
so there you go.
There you go.
But I mean, we were respectful, So maybe you could have a combination of a little bit of yellow and a little bit of blue. What does that make? Yellow and blue.
Unfortunately, that's green. So, but I mean, I think I mean, you can call I guess you can do the darker of those colors is the better of those colors, and the lighter is the
right. Here's another great question.
We've over an hour. See, we cannot get together without talking. These are the reason our episodes are like 4 hours.
Wait a minute.
Okay, go ahead. That was Natalie's hand. You didn't get to see Natalie, but you get to at least see her hand come out and smack me.
Does the actions of an orange-ish get canceled out? Are they canceled out by doing something blue?
If you are doing the orange and you are doing the blue?
Yes. Like if you go in there and you do something that's like, you probably shouldn't be doing that. But then you go one step extra, one step further, and you're like, you know what? After I did this orange, I'm going to make sure that it's back to blue now or beyond.
I think maybe like that, yes, but not I'm going to do blues just so I can do oranges. That I'm a little bit sketchier on. But I want their responses.
Okay, yeah. We need your responses.
So we need to wrap this up anyway because we're over an hour.
Yeah, and I'm tired.
And you're tired. Mm-hmm. And I'm tired of this angle that I'm...
Choose your words carefully.
I'm tired of this angle. Right, Rita, but we want specific things you've done. Like cemetery that you've done it in, what you've done, and how you would rank it.
Yeah.
So,
Rita, please share us your experiences. You've been fantastic and super interactive tonight. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so recap, right? We debated why we were, just because some people have joined in the last couple minutes. We debated and discussed what might be appropriate and inappropriate to do in a cemetery. Mm-hmm. We've come up with extremes, but we found a lot of murky gray area, right? So we were asking people to do. I'm going to face the camera for this, so don't be offended. What we're asking you guys to do is post either on this or when we post it, we'll give the scale as well, or on the YouTube. What is a specific thing that you've done in a cemetery, and how would you rank it on our scale? Red, unacceptable, completely unacceptable, undebatably unacceptable. Orange, it's kind of sketchy. Like, you know, like I wouldn't do that. Yellow, you're approaching it. Green, you're okay. You're great. You're fantastic. You did right. Not fantastic, but you did right. Blue, you went above and beyond to show the respect and to add something to that cemetery. Right. And to those people whose spirit might be there as lives, post lives, lives after lives.
Right.
That's the scale.
Right, that's the scale. So that's what we're asking for that, but we're also asking for, what do you think paying respect means? Right, and then what you could say, what you think being respectful is, and what you think being disrespectful is, and try to be as specific as possible, because I think this is something that is not necessarily common sense. Because you were saying, for example, just now, you walked over the graves, which some people would consider disrespectful, to pick them up. So there's a line. Okay. That's the scale. We're going to be getting out now. We have to get out. We have to go to bed. I am Christopher Balzano. Wait, should we do the whole, like, contact us, connect with us here? Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Okay. So we do this, right. We do this once a week. We try and do this once a week if we can think of a topic to do. It's usually me alone in my house, but we've been thankful enough to have Natalie. You have to trust me that she looks amazing. She won't come on camera. So you can reach us at spookytripping@gmail.com. You can tweet us at I'm at Spooky Balzano.
And I'm at Nene, my friend.
Obviously, we have our Facebook Live here. We've got a YouTube. Facebook is Facebook /Tripping on Legends. And the WordPress is trippingonlegends.wordpress.com. So for Tripping on Legends, I am Christopher Balzano.
And I am Natalie Crist.
And here's hoping that all your trips, even if they're in cemeteries,
are legendary and respectful and blue and green.
We're going to stay along to keep on with the chat, but we're going to end the video here.
Take care.
Thank you for tuning in.